What is up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Make Every Second Count Live with me, Jeff Marconette Jr. And I am so pumped up for tonight. You see, I had to last minute find a new guest because my old guest or my guest that wasn't able to do it tonight, and she just let me know at the last minute. So I quickly sent people some messages, and I had one awesome friend of mine that took me up on the opportunity. And let me tell you, this is no slouch. I mean, he's a big man. I mean tall, not big round, but he is a big man and he demands your respect. So I would ask you if you would please share this video out. Invite all kinds of people to watch it. Give us all kinds of thumbs up, hearts, frowny faces, cry faces, heck. You can even get mad at us. I don't care. Just help us trick the algorithms on many of the socials that we're on. And then also keep the comments coming. We want to have more of a conversation instead of making a presentation. So the theme of tonight's show is how you start does not determine your future. And this guy is actually perfect for that. So, with no further ado, I would like to bring to the stage Mr. Saccone Prince.
What's
Hey,
going on, Jeff?
Saccone, how
Hey,
are
Jeff.
you?
I'm fine, and you?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you so much for being able to hop in here tonight.
You are
I
so.
I tried to confirm with my other guest like two days ago, and I know she saw the message, but she didn't respond. And then like 20 minutes till 7 tonight, she sends me a thing. Oh, I have a meeting tonight. I'm sorry, I can't do it. It's like, okay, that that's
So
that's fine. So
yeah.
I reached out to some people, and you were the first and only person to answer me. So I love it.
Well, Jeff, you and I go way back, and anything I can do to help you, I'm like definitely here. So, what are we talking about tonight?
All right, so we're talking about how you start does not determine your future.
Mm.
And I know that I had a freaking amazing upbringing. I mean, my parents were still together, and I know a lot of people's parents are divorced, but my parents were together. They got along, and they treated me amazing, and they let me play every sport that I could get my hands on. And I still love my parents amazingly well. And I know people that don't have the best upbringing sometimes don't get along with their parents and things like that. So, what kind of upbringing did you have, Saccone?
Well, Jeff, I was actually raised by my mother, and she was in a single parent household. So, needless to say, I found myself dealing with that, and especially being a young man, seeing my mother struggle, to do a lot of stuff. I mean, just simple stuff like changing a doorknob or fixing a like leaky faucet. It definitely did something to me, at least from the standpoint of wanting to help and not being able to, not really having like the actual knowledge to do that. But it was a driving force, like behind me, making sure that I was able to be that, for my wife and for my children as well.
So, what kind of, I mean, All right, I know what kind of upbringing you want to give your children, but how can you say that you are setting a good example for your kids?
Well, none of us get it perfect, but I remember I was talking to a good friend of mine who is a psychologist, and he actually told me, he said, you are trying to give your children the father that you didn't have. And that's true. You
Yeah.
know, well, like I said, my mom and dad, they got divorced when I was 2 months old. And I, I never wanted my children to grow up not knowing what it was like to have their father around. So, I even, in fact, when I had to travel for work, if there was any possible way that I could get home sooner, I would, because I didn't want them to have that feeling that I had. So, but even with that, that still doesn't change the actual need for, I guess, that level of, connection, the fact that you want to have with your children. Uh, and and like you said, there were a lot of friends whose parents weren't together. And even today, talking to my children, the point fact, they have a lot of friends whose parents aren't back together. And I, I think I spent a lot of my time trying to help them understand why it's important to take advantage of the resources you have. Because so many people wish they had their father in the home. They wish they had somebody that they could go to and ask for advice. But if you don't really focus on what you have, if you take it for granted, or well, he's always going to be there, or she's always going to be there, then you will allow for a resource to go unused and untapped. And so, it's one of those things where people oftentimes ask me, "How's the family?" And my response is generally, it's generally the same. Like I said, they're doing better than they know.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes they don't really realize just how good they have it. And I spend some time trying to remind them of how good they have it, but sometimes that falls on deaf ears. But I know it take me as a father and as a husband is, to just, to be there for my family.
Yeah, that is amazing. Now, I understand that it often makes me feel guilty when I am hanging around other people that didn't have both parents in the household, and they grew up in a single family house like you did.
Right.
And how can what would you tell somebody like me? I mean, is that just you were lucky and you shouldn't feel bad, or you should feel bad, or how's that work?
Well, I mean, quite honestly, Jeff, and I hate to use this term, but it's true. It is what it is. You know, you shouldn't feel guilty about having your parents there with you. But I think too, just you being sensitive enough to the needs of the people around you, not to, for lack of a better term, rub it in their face or make them feel bad, because they don't, or always flaunting, what it is you have. We have a responsibility, to live reasonable and civil with those people around us. And so that means even us being considerate of what other people are dealing with and going through, and not taking our blessings for granted. It's one of those things where you don't really understand what you have until you don't have it. I was I'm reminded of the story about this man who was complaining about the shoes he was wearing. You know, they weren't the latest ones. They weren't as comfortable as they could be. And then he's walking down the street and saw this guy in a wheelchair that had no feet.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like, And it's sad that we have to see somebody that's worse off than we are for us to appreciate what it is we have. So if we can stay in that mode of gratitude without having to see the disparity of somebody else, to me, that helps us to appreciate what it is we have, but it makes us an example for those people that are around us.
So you're talking about being a leader at that point, correct?
Yes, oh, definitely, definitely. All of us, we have influence, and there are people that are always looking to us. And so, if we don't realize and understand that, we will take our position for granted. Yeah.
Yeah, now, see, that is a thing that I like to talk about a lot, and that is taking things for granted. Don't do that because that's not smart. But so in case you guys are new, I at 17 I was involved in a very serious car accident, and those abilities that you have, like the use of your fingers, the use of your feet, the use of your legs, the use of your arms, the fact that you can breathe on your own, you don't notice those things as often until you lose them. So what we're saying here is you don't really notice that you have, oftentimes many people don't notice that they have a household that is well together, built amazing with a great foundation, and they take that for granted. So, what is some ways that you would tell people that they can not take that stuff for granted?
Again, and I don't know if this is just human nature or not, but like you remember when you and I went to Guyana, South America?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
sent you a memory of it last week.
you did, and just that actual trip, it gave me a total different perspective. Again, of stuff that we just take for granted. You know, that old saying that you don't miss your water till your well runs dry. You know, you don't really realize what it is you have until it's taken away. But you have to make a conscious decision to step back and to appreciate what it is you have. I think we oftentimes spend time looking at what we don't have or how bad things are as opposed to how good they are or even how bad they could be, but they're not. There's something that we can be grateful for. You know, there's something that we can be appreciative for. And but that takes effort. It takes us intentionally. A good friend of mine always says to fall to the positive. We have to make it a point for us to look at the positive aspect of what's going on in our life. And true enough, there are a ton of negative things that we find ourselves facing and dealing with. But there's also things that are positive. You know, we have our health and our strength. You know, we can't live in yesterday. We can't live in tomorrow. We can only live in today. That's why it's called the present, because it's a gift.
Yeah.
And so if we don't take that to heart, we'll be super worried about what's going to happen next Monday. And people die every day. They die every minute, every second. We may be one of those people. So why are we so concerned about something that's so far off? And I mean, Monday, it might as well be 30 years in the future because we haven't got there yet. You know, so we have to make a conscious decision to look at our life, take inventory of what it is we have, how blessed we are, and then be grateful for that.
That is so true. I believe it's Dr. West that was talking at one event that every 42 seconds someone dies in the United States. I
Mhm.
I can't guarantee those numbers are correct, but I'm just reiterating what he said at the
Right,
time.
right.
A- And that is crazy to think about. I mean, You guys could walk out the front door just after listening to this program and be hit by a car. Or you could be in a car wreck. Or your life could just change in some way. And you really can't take that for granted. I know there are a lot of people out there that are struggling, and they're struggling with their mental health, and that affects our health in a lot of ways. So I know that you do things with mental health. So can you give a little tip about how they can improve their mental health and then in turn improve their health?
Well, first I want to clear up the stigma around like mental health, because a lot of people associate mental health with mental illness. Now, you can have a physical illness, but you can also have physical health. So you want to be healthy physically. Well, mental health is not necessarily something that's a negative stereotype. It's actually something that we need to, just like our physical health, work on. And so the tip that I would give anybody is to, again, to take the time to listen to your body, to see what it is that you need to do to become the best version of yourself physically. Even get enough rest, taking time for yourself, unplugging every now and then, going on a walk, going to the beach, going to the mountains, going out in nature, fly a kite, paint something, write a song, do some poetry, read a book, anything that will allow your mind to kind of disengage from all of the noise that we find ourselves that's being bombarded with us from all of these social media, stuff on the radio, stuff on television, while we're driving, while we're working. We are in information overload. And that can affect our mental health, which can also affect our physical health. So we have to make it a point for us to, again, intentionally do that so that we can be better. On my podcast, because you talked about my book, which I happen to have a copy right here, it's entitled Heal, Help, Elevate, and Learn, and the subtitle is A Guide to Healing Your Inner Child. I say that my podcast is not here to end the conversation about inner child healing or inner child trauma. My podcast is to start the conversation. And see, I want to make a commonplace where people are okay with talking about things that they haven't talked about before. I want to make it to where it's okay for us to say, look, I need to see some help. I need to go talk to somebody. I need a professional to help me work through this. Because I've noticed that a lot of adults, grown folks, are living out their inner child trauma and wounds, and they don't even recognize it. And that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, because I wanted to make sure that they understand that there's something you can do. And I tell people this all the time. What happened to you may not have been your fault, but it's your responsibility. I'll say that again for those that are taking notes. What happened to you may not have been your fault, but it is your responsibility. And when I say it's your responsibility to heal. It's your responsibility to intentionally do what's necessary in order for you to free yourself from that trauma, from that wound. But if you don't intentionally do that, you would carry it around the rest of your life and saying, well, this is just the way I am. And I tell people again, it's not what you do, but why you do it. And we'll ask questions of everybody else, but rarely do we ask questions of ourselves. And that's how I really started my own journey. I started my personal development journey asking myself a question. So, Conan, why do you act in this way? Why do you respond in this way? What is it about you that has you showing up like this in these situations?
Yeah.
So I started doing some digging, and I found out that I had some issues. I had some stuff that I needed to work on. Now, and believe me, I did as much as I could on my own. But there came a point where it's like, you know what? I need some help.
Yeah.
And so I got some.
That's good. Now, a lot of people are embarrassed to ask for help because they're too egotistical. They have too much pride. They think that they're strong. They can handle this. And I realized not too long ago when I said something to somebody that didn't go over real well, and that got me in my head. And I had my first ever bout with anxiety at this point, and it took me out for a month and a half easy, and it was not good. Um, I didn't know how to handle it. And if I hadn't have had the tools that I already knew that I could use, then I I don't I can't say where I would be now.
Right,
And I feel bad for the people that don't have those tools, that don't go out and try to learn those tools, that don't ask for help.
right, right.
So, how would you approach somebody that is too proud to ask for help?
Well, I remember hearing this one man say, make a friend before you need a friend. Because the time you need one is the wrong time to try to make one. Okay?
That's
Make a
good.
friend before you need a friend. Because the time you need one is the wrong time to try to make one. And
That's
so,
good.
those people that have an issue with asking for help, I would question, how many friends do you have? I mean, seriously, how many friends do you have? And it's not just a one-way street. It's not about the friend that you. It's not about what you can get from them, but what can you give to them. It has to be a reciprocal relationship, and that's why you have to build. You have to work at friendship. You have to work at any relationship for it to be anything that's worth having.
Yeah.
So you have to invest in a friend. You have to invest in friendships. And I would tell people this, you know, get you a friend and live in another state, another city, somebody that don't know the name, don't know the plan, somebody that you can throw up on. And I even did a video about that because we all need somebody we can throw up on. Because our bodies, our physical bodies, when we get sick, when we have drunk too much or got food poisoning, the first thing our body wants to do is expel, get it out. I want to get it out. And sometimes it come out of one or both ends. But we get it out. we we get it out so the healing process can start. And emotionally, mentally, we may find ourselves sick. And we need somebody to throw up on, somebody to get it out, somebody that we can talk to. But you can't do that with somebody who you haven't built that type of relationship with. So my first thing is build friendships, true, lasting friendships. Not just what can you do for me and what can I do for you, but be the type of person that you would like to have as a friend, and you will attract that type of person. You will be that person for somebody else, and when the time comes, they will call on you. But then when the time comes, you're gonna have to call on them. So I encourage build friendships.
That's awesome. Now, I just took part in a documentary called The Friendship Paradox. And
Nice.
the thing is, it's all about making friends after the age of 30, I believe. I don't know, but it's all about making friends and friendship questions and things like that. It's really cool. Now, I'm going to put the link to the event for the documentary in the comments because the premiere of it is actually on Friday. So
Nice.
it's really cool. I'm excited, But I put the link there in the comments, and I hope you guys can watch it and look it up if you can't find it. If you can't find the comment, look it up on Facebook. It is called The Friendship Paradox. So I hope you guys all register to watch that with me. I know I'm going to be watching it. I'm going to be celebrating it because that is not the first documentary I've ever been in, but that is something I can celebrate. And I like to
That's it.
celebrate. So, you were talking a little bit about a book and a little bit about a podcast. Can you tell us where we can find each of those?
Well, actually, it's one link. It's sauconyprince.com/heal. Then there's a forward slash at the end of the word heal. And in fact, the book has been life changing. Not just for me for writing it, but I've had people tell me about, just the approach of how helpful it's been to just consider that they're walking or carrying around childhood wounds and childhood trauma. And the reason that I give a distinction between the two, because a childhood wound, to me, is something that could have happened just one time, and it hurt you. But a trauma is something, to me, that goes on, that's for an extended period of time. And so there are a lot of things that we have yet to really unpack or even label, for that matter. And again, behavior. Because one of the questions I ask is, is your current day behavior seated in something from your childhood? And
Wow.
if we're honest with ourselves, if we really take a look at ourselves, we will see that a lot of the stuff that we do as adults was seeded in our childhood. We thought that we weren't enough, so we're an overperformer. We thought that we weren't loved, so we are a people pleaser. And I mean, in fact, the list goes on and on. But the book, it really it's it's a layman's approach to really such a sensitive issue, which is why I wanted to do the podcast. Because on the podcast, I've had therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, and coaches. All of them, they are experts in their field, and I actually used them to help unpack some of the stuff that I wrote in the book. And it was really refreshing to understand and see that I was on the right track with a lot of stuff I was talking about. But I wanted to make sure that I, again, started the conversation, not end it. I just want to start the conversation. I want people to take a minute, take a moment, just look at themselves and say, is there something I'm doing? Is there a behavior that I have, something that keeps showing up that could be seated in something that happened in my childhood? And it takes somebody close to you. If you can't see it, like we've oftentimes said, what Les Brown told Dr. West, you can't see the picture when you're in the frame.
Yeah.
Well, there are people around you that are close enough to you, they can see stuff you can't. And so being able to have somebody close enough to you that you trust, that really wants you to succeed, they want the best for you, and asking them, why do you think I do this? Or is there anything I'm missing? Is there something that I'm not seeing? Because sometimes we're blind to it. We've been in it for so long, we've been doing it for so long, we can't even see it. And when it's brought to our attention, we sometimes try to explain the way, try to in fact, dismiss it. But if we are honest with ourselves, we'll see, hey, that's an issue, that's a problem, and this is where it comes from, and I need to get some help.
Yeah. That is so true. So you guys should definitely check out his book, check out his podcast because he is doing amazing work. Again, you can find that at sauconyprince.com/heal. And then there's another slash. So check that out. and definitely check that out because I know he's done amazing work. And I definitely want to say thank you, Sakoni. I appreciate you hopping in here tonight, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Oh yeah, yeah, Jeff. Well, hey, listen, anytime I can help you, Jeff. In fact, all you got to do is call. I do appreciate your consistency in what it is you're doing and the help that you're doing again by just raising that level of awareness that people shouldn't take life for granted, and they should honestly make every second count because you never know when it's going to be your last. So I applaud you for your consistency, your diligence in helping people to understand that they have something that they need to live for, and they need to not take life for granted. So thank you, Jeff.
Thank you so much. I appreciate those kind words. But I need everybody out there, including you, Sakoni, to do me a favor this week, next week, and for the rest of your life. I need you to make every second count. Why? Because you never know when those seconds will run out on your one life. I'll see you guys back here next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And until then, have a fantastic week and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Thank you
Thanksgiving.
again, Tony.
You're welcome, Jeff.